How's it going, everybody, and welcome to How Good Is It Really? My name is Jeremiah.
I'm Luke.
And today we're going to be talking about episode 4 of Obi-Wan. Alright, we're just going to run through our 10 categories really quick and give our initial review, and then we'll actually dive into everything that actually happens that we actually want to talk about.
Yeah. You will definitely want to stick around for the end of this because we are going to hit all of the points of this episode.
All the points we can remember. Don't make promises that we,
I definitely
may not
remember.
actually.
I remember significantly more about this when I did the last one.
Okay, fair
and
enough.
I will leave the reasons for why I remember them to the second portion. So let's.
Okay, but
let's
vague review. Writing.
Oh boy,
The writing is not strong in this episode.
No.
This is probably the worst one of the 4 so far.
Oh yeah,
Definitely. There's a lot, and not the dialogue. The dialogue, I think, it works well. It's all serviceable. It's all fine. But a lot of the story beats and the way some of the scenes and the action is like written, and it's just, it's like a 6. It's not good.
I can't even give it a 6. Man.
Really?
Like, yeah, no. For me, this is like a 4.5.
Really?
Yeah, this is bad.
Okay.
This one's really bad. And I have good reasons to substantiate all of that. I mean, this is pretty much a consensus across the board, it seems. At the time of making this video, I watched the episode yesterday. I rewatched the final bits of it just to see if I was being fair. Yeah, it's as rough as we say it is. And that seems to be...
I'm amending my statement to a 5.
Yeah, it's harsh, we know, but seriously though, this one's rough. It really is. The delivery of some of the lines is
We'll get there.
yeah, okay.
We'll get there.
We're going to get there. Let's just hit these categories.
Well,
real
next
quick.
is acting. So delivery of lines.
Oh man, okay, yeah, so acting,
Not bad.
I don't blame the actors. I think they're just
This
written...
was much more a story problem with this episode than anything. It was much more a writing problem than anything
pacing,
else.
editing, and story. I don't think that the actors themselves necessarily have anything to be blamed for.
No, not at all.
They don't get any kind of creative input. It's not like they're...
They get some, depending.
I guess that's true, but for the most part, this is a creative vision from Deborah Chow, who we know is writing these episodes, along with 2 other people who have worked on nothing noteworthy. And we will add some more details as we go along. And if you have knowledge of who these 2 people are, then you can talk about them in the comments below. But I know for a fact that the 2 people that have been responsible for like co-writing or at least writing these episodes have admitted openly that they don't know anything about Star Wars. Like, they didn't even watch. One of them didn't even know what happened in Revenge of the Sith. Like, I don't know why Disney is going with these people, but these writers clearly don't understand the characters. I don't think that they understand how to write good television either, because this episode is written like a cartoon. It should have been a cartoon episode, a filler episode on like a Tuesday morning. But anyway, as far as writing or acting is concerned, I think
it wasn't bad.
I don't blame the actors. I absolutely think that the script was awful. Absolutely awful. And that ties into writing. But acting, it's serviceable. But there's nothing amazing about any of it. And I have big issues with certain scenes and sequences that don't make any sense.
6.5?
I'd give it a 5.
Come on.
I'd give it a 5 for sure. Ewan McGregor does a good job. The chick playing Tala does a good job. I still have issues with both Reva and Little Leia.
All right, 5. I'm going 6.
Yeah, it's 5 for me for sure.
Okay. Cinematography.
It's good. It's Star Wars. It's got big, grand, sweeping gesture, shots of cool scenery and big open decks of, on this Imperial base, and we see lots of stormtroopers and officers walking around. It's good, and then we see the underwater portion of the castle that you saw in the previous episode is featured more prominently in this one. There's a lot of undersea creatures that we can see. There's a lot of detail paid attention to, like the flora and the fauna. So the cinematography
the way everything is shot is
it's
really
good.
well. Really
it's
good.
Star Wars, though. I mean, like, this is big budget
You'd expect
production.
this to be good.
Yeah, so I can't knock it too much there.
What you thinking?
For this one, we'll give it like a 7.5.
Okay, I can go with that. It's weird. We're gonna have some numbers that are the same, some that aren't.
Yeah.
Okay, editing.
4.
4?
It's bad.
It's not actively bad.
It's pretty bad. It's not like The Room bad, but then again, hardly anything is The Room bad. But this one definitely takes the cake for worst TV episode I've seen in a long time, period. There's just some things that don't work at all. And it's the editing. It's absolutely editing and storytelling.
There's some editing problems. Here's the thing. Like, I don't know if I would call them editing problems. Because...
Poor editing choices.
Well, but here's the editing sticks out in certain spots because it wasn't utilized as much as it should have been to hide where other things fell short. That's the problem. Where it's like the editing itself wasn't bad. It's just it could have been used to make up for where the episode lacked in other spots. So I don't know if I can say the editing was bad.
Without
just
getting
because...
into spoilers, it's hard for me to like give the reason, like the big reasons. But there's like 3 huge things that don't work in this episode that are an editing choice because how it was directed and written was terrible. It did not work, and it could have been. So saved
your last
line
of defense, editing to try and hide some stuff, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
So
and I don't know
what were you
why.
saying?
4. Yeah, 4.
6.
For me,
I still think 4. It wasn't completely incompetent, and I can't necessarily fault the episode too much on because it did well in other areas for editing. Like
some
a couple spots where it fell short for sure, and it should have been, not only could have been, probably should have been utilized a little bit better with some of the editing choices to help hide some stuff, but everything outside of that was still good.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea who is making these final decisions. I would love to assume that it's not Deborah Chow, but I don't know. Maybe it's some exec that's just whispering in her ear, like, we need to show this, and you need to like.
That she's the director for the entire series, I'm assuming that she has some say in it, as well as whoever the showrunner is, and whatever exec is kind of overseeing.
But we know from previous experience that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm in general has a super bad habit of firing directors that they don't like, that don't step to their beat and march to the sound of whatever agenda, story, or version of whatever it is that they want to do. So I would assume that it's not Deborah. She's just doing exactly what she was told to do, much the same way that J.J. Abrams was kind of told what to do. Even though I sincerely do not have any faith in him as a storyteller, I think that he does not bear blaming for the failure of the sequel trilogy to the same degree that Rian Johnson does. So I do not think that Deborah Chow is necessarily making these kinds of final decisions, so I'm not sure if we can lay that blame at her feet. But whoever is calling the shots on what makes it to the final cut that we get on television, they need to be replaced by somebody who understands how to make television.
Or at least do better.
I don't know if you can fix this. Like, that person clearly has never had much experience editing large budget things. Like, maybe they've worked on like some Telemundo
Which means
or something.
They need to get better.
Yeah. Fire them. Hire somebody better. Seriously. It's Disney. They have like all the money.
Okay, moving on. Score. It's the same as it's always been with this show, where just like
it's Star Wars. The motifs are like faintly present. I know I was paying
attention.
attention.
Enjoying the main theme in the title sequence for the title card.
Okay.
The theme that plays during the title card. I am noticing that more, but kind of only because it sounds like the Harry Potter theme.
Yeah, it's faintly reminiscent.
Not that I don't like it.
No, it's just a John Williams tribute, and it's very forgettable. Not because it's a John Williams tribute, but because there's nothing original about it, and it just blends into the scenery.
Yeah, I mean...
I didn't notice. I actively tried to notice and look for discernible beats, change in music, tension. It was not there.
That's the only spot that I noticed it more was like, yeah.
I noticed the initial, when Reva is marching across the deck of the landing dock, or the the hangar bay, excuse me, and she's walking to the checkpoint, and there were some noticeable musical changes there. It was very ominous sounding, and they were clearly trying to evoke some sort of essence of like the Imperial March from Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
But still, though, beyond that, yeah, it's
What would you give it?
6.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
It's Star Wars, and it's, I don't know, what it reminds me of is if you found like royalty-free Star Wars-esque music. That's really what it feels like. It doesn't feel like somebody wrote a award-winning score.
Well, I mean, no. And like, again,
for as much hype as the show has gotten,
to be fair, like, not every score is going to be amazing.
Oh, here's an idea. Maybe instead of paying whoever
it
is that's doing the editing, maybe pay the guy who's writing the music a little bit more money. Maybe then you get something a little bit more memorable.
Unless they're not going for that.
Yeah, maybe they're just not going for anything with this show. It seems
Which,
like at this point.
that's where everything just kind of falls flat.
What do we have, like 2 episodes left at this point?
Yeah, I think so. It's 2 episodes.
Oh, this is not going to be good, people. This is so not going to be
Visual
well.
effects.
It's Star Wars. They're good. Except for 2 spots. There was a weird sequence at the end. I can't really talk about it because it's spoilers, but there was a strange way that they kind of some forced perspective that they use with a couple of the ship models, and it got a little funky. Just like aspect ratios were a little bit weird.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that was definitely noticeable. But other than that, everything else worked really well. The explosions are par for the course. Lightsabers look good. The water effects were, they all look good. You know, they used, I don't know, Star Wars people. It always looks like Star Wars.
Thoughts? Or
like a 7. And there's nothing like earth-shattering about it. I didn't
7 is good. Like, there's nothing negative about it.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that stood out to me as being amazing or fantastical. No crazy new way of filming anything. There weren't any super creative shots that I noticed. It was just
set deck, costuming, and wardrobe. Again, it's Star Wars.
Lots of stormtroopers, lots of Imperial officer uniforms.
Yeah.
Ill-fitting at times, I will say that. I don't know.
Which is somewhat true to life in that not everything is going to be perfectly tailored all the time.
Well, I would say that that's fair except for one thing. In all of the original movies, the original 6, every single time that we saw a naval officer of any sort on screen, they were always in a perfectly fitted uniform that was tailored to them. Or it was made to look that way.
Yeah, that's fair.
That is not like the way it is here. These are clearly...
Given that it is the Empire, you would assume that all of them, especially like all the officers, would have.
And you can't make the argument that it's like, oh, the Empire's fallen. No, they haven't. This is the prime. They're in their height of their momentum.
Yeah.
And people look like they're wearing, like they haven't gone to the tailor yet to get their uniform sized. Yeah, but they were in noteworthy spots though, including Tala, her uniform, and
Tala's was the worst.
And she clearly has like some sort of like actual presence as an Imperial officer. So I'm not sure if she's a double agent who like is now working for the newfound Rebel Alliance or
my assumption is that she was always just sort of kind of a sympathizer for the rebellion
and just is working as a double agent. That's entirely possible. Still, why does her uniform look like it's made for somebody twice her size? It is loose fitting and looks hoopty. It looks bad. Other than that, I didn't notice anything else. I liked the motif of the Jedi robes that they gave to Obi-Wan. Those look good. Those were like more fitting with the what he had previous, like the old way that the Jedi would dress, just very simple tunics. Obviously, they're trying to harken back to that, and it shows. And it looked good.
Yeah, and it's also really stupid because the guy that's trying not to be found,
he now looks just like a Jedi. Yeah, I noticed that too. But still, though, in just purely an aesthetic observation, the costume looked good. And the Inquisitor armor is fitting a lot better and not quite so loose and jangly as it was in previous episodes.
Yeah, well, it only had that problem on the Grand Inquisitor, though, not on the Third Brother.
What? Are you sure? I didn't...
Fairly certain.
Okay, well...
Like the issues that we had in the first episode with some of the Inquisitor armor looking kind of odd. Like it just didn't fit well together for whatever reason. And then it slowly got better, but that was just on the Grand Inquisitor. I don't think it had... I didn't notice it on the third.
You're probably right. Anyway, no, the costume designs, they look good. Except for, I will say this, why are they using what are they? The Resistance. Why are they using Resistance helmets for everything now? This doesn't make any sense from a chronological standpoint. Those helmets are
they Resistance helmets?
Yeah,
I'm
they
not.
are.
I don't pay close enough attention to or know.
And here's the
stuff
thing:
like
is
that
that
to
a lot of no offense intended normies, like hardcore fanboys, are not really going to be paying attention to this. Yeah, and most of you probably watching this are not that way either. But those helmets don't exist yet, or at least they shouldn't. Every Resistance pilot in the sequel trilogy, which happens 40 years after
everything
Return
should
of the
be
Jedi,
like Rebellion or pre-Rebellion era, so it should look at least most similar to that.
right? And this is the second time they've made this gaffe. In the previous episode, where you see the dead pilot that Reva just like went through a portal and appeared behind and killed, because we still don't know how she got from one point to the other in that tunnel.
Yeah.
But at the end, when she kills that dude, he has a Resistance helmet. I don't know if it's just Disney being lazy, like they always are, and just thinking that you're dumb enough to just go with it, and you're not observant enough, or that you care enough about Star Wars to say, hey, that's not right. It should be this way. And they're like, shut up, no one cares. Watch it and like it.
Right. So, what are you thinking then?
With the exception of that one thing, it's like a 7.5 overall.
It's still good. Okay.
Yeah, there's just those two things. The fact that Obi-Wan's clothes, for a dude who's literally trying to go as inconspicuous as possible, is standing out like a homeless dude who found a Jedi and stole all his clothes, which fits the aesthetic. I get that. Obi-Wan has always had kind of a loose beard, and his hair is obviously a little bit more unkempt than it has been in the past. But still, like, dude. And he still holds on to the blaster, so it's like he's still trying to pretend as if he's not really a Jedi, so...
Yeah, it's...
The tonal shifts
odd.
in this. The
It's
tonal
odd,
shifts
for
in
sure.
these episodes. They are not flowing together.
Audio mixing and sound design. It's Star Wars.
Yeah, it's good.
Like, that part of
8.
it is good.
8.
8. For sure.
Yep. There's
It's
really
like-
no reason to stick
it
on
is,
that.
It is really good.
Doors sound like doors. Droids sound like droids. Lightsabers sound like lightsabers. Water sounds like water.
What do doors sound like?
Exactly. The swooshing noise that they make on the hydraulics when they open and close. Things like that.
Directing.
Ooh, boy.
We said it before, this was the worst episode so far.
4.5. Seriously. If she's got the final say on all of the choices that we have hit so far, seriously, this one is a turd.
I don't know. Because, again, 5 is like just right down the middle of the road. Where it's not actively bad, there's nothing actively good about it either. So I'm kind of flirting.
I will justify my reasons for giving a 4.5 once we get into spoilers, and I have good reasons.
I'll go straight 5.
Straight 5? Okay.
Yeah. Because, again, it's not actively bad in any areas for me, but there's nothing, like, necessarily good about it either. It's
Okay.
just
Total
right down.
enjoyment, like just how much you would rate
Yeah,
it
what's
overall.
your total enjoyment?
Shoot, I'm going to have to give it, like, I think a 4.5. It's just really, I was bored, and then I didn't care. I watched it to the end, and I was like, okay,
6
is this
for me.
it? Really? Okay.
6 for me.
6.
So 4.5 for you. We'll go 6 for me.
The only saving grace about this we will get into very shortly. There was a couple of good sequences, 2 specifically that I can think of, and for different reasons. One of them sucked and was good at the same time. The other was great because it was good. And that's just all there is to it with this
All right.
one.
So your final score will be 58.5.
Yeah.
And then mine is 64. So not that much higher, but
Not
a few
really.
points higher.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to get into spoilers in 1, 2, 3. You've been warned. Here we go. Okay.
You say warmed?
Warned. Sorry, warned. It's been a long day.
It's been warm. We've been warmed as well. It's been
Yes.
like over 100 degrees all week.
It is freaking hot outside. Welcome to the desert, yo.
Goodness. Yeah. Okay. What's the first thing you want to dive into?
Okay, so we're getting into spoilers. So basically, the entirety of this episode is self-contained within the space on this water planet, whose name I can't remember because they suck at naming planets now. Sounds like Io or something, like some super generic, weird
I
sounding
didn't
name.
write down the name of the planet that they were
Just
on.
stop trying to be extra Disney and just look at the expanded universe and start using some of the actual good writing, good planet names, and actual developed ecological systems of these planets that are in the books. Just stop trying to pretend like you're better than them and just admit that those stories were better. Just admit it, and you will make so much more money. But that being said, everything happens on this self-contained water base, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Obi-Wan has recovered in the fastest healing montage I've ever seen.
They stuck him in a bacta tank
for like a solid 45 seconds.
I mean, it did specify that, he pops out of the bacta tank and he's like, Tala's like, you're not done healing, like, stay in there, you can't come out yet. And he's like, where's Leia? And
could have fooled me. This guy walks and moves like he's never been injured at all.
So they say he hasn't fully healed, but then none of that shows on screen.
Yeah, that was
he acts like he walks around and acts like he's fully healed throughout the rest of the episode.
He's not limping or like favoring a shoulder. He got dragged through literal burning coals and like cooked alive for about 35 seconds. Yeah, enough for like 3rd-degree burns. You wouldn't even know it.
Yeah.
Not even a little bit.
Well, I mean, we don't know how long he was in the bacta tank.
That's true, but through the montage of what we were allowed to see from when he hits it, there's no like cuts that make it appear as if he's been there for longer than he actually was. It would appear as if he was only there for like 20 minutes.
No, I'm assuming he was in there for several hours at least.
Okay, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it was a poorly edited montage.
And he's still like, he's not like fully healed and stuff.
Right, but still, this dude, it was just, that was bad. That was just bad. It's just clearly they don't understand how that's supposed to work.
But there's a clear passage of time. That's a little unfair to them.
The editing did not make it seem as if the passage of time was significant enough to have warranted the kind of behavior we see from Obi-Wan in the rest of the episode.
Yeah, which, again, it
read
as a couple hours to me.
Possibly, but it should have taken at least a day to recover to the point that he is in when he is doing the thing. But this is not written for people who this is written for little children who don't understand anything, or for really dumb adults. That is what Disney thinks of you if you are watching this and you're like, I loved every minute of it. If you're not catching the beats that are being presented here, then this is what's written for you, because you probably think the same of other lousy television as well.
This is one of the less egregious ones, the thing at the beginning. Like, it's not...
No, but seriously though, I feel like Disney is just, they just either think that you are stupid, which is an insult to you and an insult to me, or they just don't care. So it's either apathy or it's active aggression. I don't know which is worse. Go for it.
But is Jabeem a planet that already exists?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. I do know that there's a lot of overtures to Jedi Fallen Order in this particular episode. Specifically the water base at the end of the mission at the end of the game that you encounter when you attempt to rescue Seer it's just Seer. That's who you're attempting to rescue, who is your Jedi mentor in that game. And there is a sequence where in that game there's a really cool water, like Jaws 3 kind of deal where the tunnel collapses and the water flows in, and Darth Vader is kept from killing them because of the water, and he has to like choose between attacking them or like keeping the water from crushing them all. They kind of do the same thing in a sequence in this episode, and that's probably the best part of the episode. But getting back to where we were going to go, just walk through it chronologically. So we move from that point where Obi-Wan pops out of the tank after like having this weird, I don't know if he was having a vision or if Obi-Wan and Anakin were just shown as going through the same kind of like shock to being exposed to one another for the first time after 10 years. We're not really sure.
Yeah.
But moving on from there, we basically get introduced to these group of people that are just known as the Path. They're not fighters. They're not resistance members. They're not even the rebellion yet.
They're
just
people that are, if I remember correctly, they're just helping Force-sensitive individuals get away from the Empire, like to the outskirts of...
Right, and it's meant to be kind of... Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's supposed to be a loose correlation with the real-world Underground Railroad, which was the system by which slaves were smuggled out of the South to the free North. It's a cool idea. There's nothing wrong with it. It works. The problem that I have with it is not necessarily with that concept. It's with the people that are in it, again, with the writing. They make a very clear point to say in the dialogue, we are not fighters. We only have the 2 T-47, the snowspeeders from Empire Strikes Back are known as T-47s, and they are exclusively for transporting goods, which makes no sense because there is no cargo containers on those tiny little things, unless those tiny little like flappy flaps on the side that we see for like 2 seconds at the end of the episode somehow are going to hold like 2 shopping bags worth of groceries. That's a really inefficient way to transport goods, but I'm going to leave that one alone. We hear that those are only there for transporting goods basically and just ferrying people around, and that they are not fighters. They're not interested in attacking a base, even though it takes less than a minute to convince them to like go full James Bond and infiltrate the space, albeit with some convincing. Tala basically reprises her role as an Imperial officer to...
Some convincing, but like the sequence with Roken played really weird for me.
It did.
Because he's the one that
like,
they want to... He was going to be the pilot that takes them in originally.
Yeah.
Right, so Obi-Wan's trying to convince him
and he's
to
just
take
like
them.
ardently like, no, I'm not
right.
going to do it. There's no way. And then like he goes through this thing about like,
but
my
then,
wife was a Jedi. I knew what she was, and they killed her. You've got my help if you want it. And
yeah,
I was like,
it just
what?
felt really weird because he's just no, and then Obi-Wan's like, well, you know, something. You have no idea
what the Empire's capable of.
Yeah, no idea what the Empire's capable of. And then he tells a story about his wife, and
then like, at the end,
I have some idea what they're capable of. I have your back, kind of thing. It's like. None of that made sense.
No, like he was building up
none
to
of that
a
made sense
final no is what that logical train of thought was.
Yeah.
That at the end he should have been like, there's no way I'm going to help you because of this.
But
instead he's like, you changed my mind. I'm going to help you now.
I missed it in the credits. I tried to look it up, but I couldn't find it. Was that O'Shea Jackson Jr.?
It might have been.
It looked like him. I know he's in the show somewhere. I think that was him.
But anyway,
that cool.
was really
always
weird.
fun to see him pop up.
That for both of us. And a number of other people that I've seen so far, that was a weird scene.
Yeah, weird interaction where like the writing just did not make sense. But then he, writing, logic be damned, he does take them.
Yeah.
To the Inquisitor headquarters,
the Waterworld planet, and we see Reva walking across the hangar bay. She goes through a really cool what I assume is a checkpoint to get to the inner sanctum of where the intelligence operatives are.
Yeah, something like that.
Some sort of archive, and then beyond that, I assume, is where the Inquisitors are stationed, because we see her walk through the same double doors twice now, once in the previous episode, and now again, so I can only assume that that's what's going on. But anyway, she walks through that, and then she interrogates Leia, which was entirely drawn out way too much, and again, they forget that Leia is supposed to be 10 years old, and they treat her like she's 18, as the person she will become, and not as the person that she is now, which is a scared, frightened child who has enough sass and just chutzpah to talk back to somebody who can end her life with the snap of a finger. And there is no tension in the scene whatsoever, because we know what happens. We know that Leia is not in any danger whatsoever, and Reva is either retarded or is the worst interrogator I've ever seen, because she goes from talking to her as if she is an adult and then moves to threatening her with some unknown torture, and then she believes her because Leia's like, okay, I'll tell you, but I'm gonna tell my dad first though, because we're on the same side, right? And then Reva's like, you almost had me, now I'm really gonna torture you. And it's like, are you stupid? This is a child you're talking to, and you're supposed to be a trained counter-espionage agent.
See, I didn't take that part as her actually believing her.
It certainly looked like it. It definitely, especially the fist, she goes to use the force on her, and then she's like, you almost had me. That was either weirdly written for no reason, that was in there, because it made me, and I'm sure other people, think that she was dumb, because there's no way that was a believable pass at all, period. This is a child we're talking about. And then on top of that, just the sequence is just...
Again, she might have been... Again, it might have just been written poorly, which this whole episode was. But the way those sequence of events happened, it very easily could have been when Leia's is giving it okay, I'll tell you, that Reva is believing her at that point.
Why?
I agree. But it was believing her at that point, and then she makes the comment I'll tell you after I tell my dad, because we're on the same side. So it's trying to write Leia to be more clever, and then you have the line from Reva that, oh, you almost got me. Maybe I believed you, but then by the time Leia finished what she was talking about, Reva didn't. But that kind of makes sense if neither of these individuals were force sensitive, which we know Leia is force sensitive, and Reva is an actual force user, so she should 100% be able to tell that this kid is just BSing her.
100%.
And it just...
It did not flow right at all. And then, like, at another point before that, she's trying to read her mind with this force ability that we've only ever seen Kylo Ren use in the sequel trilogy, to, like, actively try to, like, rip information out of someone's mind, like a Vulcan mind meld. And I don't know. It's weird because they've never established anywhere in the Disney canon what that force ability is called, unless it's in some obscure like encyclopedia or something. Like, there's no reason that she should know how to do that. She was clearly one of the apprentices that we saw in the beginning who was either captured in Order 66 or was something like that. That's clearly what they're going for. And that's why she has some sort of attachment to Vader, or Vader knows who she is, because either he actively spared her life or she was handpicked by him to become an Inquisitor. Either way,
or neither, or she's just...
It's possible. I'm just making stuff up because they don't give us anything to go with, really.
Yeah, we have no backstory on her at all.
None. And
because it's very possible that it doesn't come across as either of those for me. It doesn't seem that she has any connection to Vader so much.
If you have a theory,
wants a position of power,
like,
which
if
cool,
you have a theory, let us know in the comments below. Like, if you think something that we missed there, or you're in support of either one of us for the various theories,
she's clearly just one of the Padawan that or a force sensitive. Probably, given her age, probably one of the Padawans that escaped and was captured.
Yeah, she seems to be
point.
like early 30s, or actually no, she's like probably mid 20s at this point, which would put her right at like the ending stages of when
we're
Padawans
decades post Order 66.
So. Right, and if you look at chronologically when apprentices typically pass the knighthood ritual, they're usually almost 30 at that point, so they've been an apprentice for the better part of a decade, maybe longer than that.
And when do Padawans start?
I think when they're in their teenage years, like around 15. Now, again, I'm going off of old canon, which was typically from childhood to right around 13 or 14 years old.
Yes,
they were considered...
How young do they actually start?
They were considered younglings, and then apprentices are usually chosen
that was
like
my question.
13 or 14.
How old are younglings?
Younglings. Infants to, like, I think 12 or something like that. Like, very young.
So anywhere in that age range is considered a youngling?
Yeah, and then past that,
you become a Padawan.
Once you get chosen, and then for as long as it takes,
up until you pass to become
right. And then we also know from Ahsoka's age, she's clearly like no older than 14 years old, and we know that she's very young because Anakin in the very first episode of Clone Wars makes a comment about her being excessively young to be a Padawan learner, and Yoda says that she's actually a lot further along than she actually appears to be, and she can't be any older than like 13 or 14 years old at that point. So
just a few years into being an actual Padawan.
Right. We're just guessing, honestly. There's probably some official Disney age specifically. I'm sure it's directly correlated to the ticket prices for Disneyland and who isn't allowed to get in for free and qualified as a youngling for their weird Star Wars things they do at Galaxy's Edge.
Moving on.
So they go past that point. So now we're going to move into probably the most egregious editing and writing gaffes of this entire episode.
We're not there yet. I don't think so.
Not yet? Okay, what am I missing?
Well, what were we just talking about?
So Reva's made it to the base. She interrogated Leia.
Yeah, so she's talking to Leia, doing all this stuff, and then Tala lands.
So we are at the same point. So
Tala
and Obi-Wan land.
Obi-Wan jumps out because he's going to swim through the water and come out from underneath, and Tala's going to land because she's an Imperial officer. She has clearance to do so.
Right.
And I just wrote that I like her interaction with the guard. When she's
that was actually good.
Where she's like pulling rank on him and stuff. It's like, just act like you belong and be a jerk and you'll fit right in.
Oh yeah, it was 100% fitting with the motif of both the Empire.
That was great.
As well as what a superior officer would react as if a junior was questioning their authenticity to do or behave in a certain way.
Why are you here kind of thing. It's like, who are you to question me?
Yeah, no, it was well played and it was well acted too. It wasn't over the top.
That was good.
No, it was great. Past that point though, it just goes downhill. So she gets into these archives, or there's like a control center, basically.
She's basically looking at some kind of blueprints of the base kind of thing to track some of the secret droids and kind of guide Obi-Wan through the different corridors kind of thing.
Which plays like... it was like Pac-Man and like a video game montage a little bit in his like running from hallway to hallway avoiding these droids that he could have like disabled in a really cool way without
I kept waiting
alerting
for him
anything.
to just like force push one,
Yeah.
like disable it kind of thing.
Or
It never
like
happened.
use his lightsaber to like clearly pinpoint a location on the droid's body because he spent a decade of his life fighting droids,
Yeah.
and yet he's like running away from this thing every time it gets anywhere near him, and it's just a probe droid. It's not even like a battle droid or anything. So it's just that Obi-Wan Kenobi just still being kind of
He does get better in this episode.
yeah for like a minute. Anyway, so
A minute and a half.
yeah, minute and a half. So much better. So Tala gets into this like computer room, and this is where I just lost it. I checked out. I started playing on my phone because it was just so.
You gotta pay attention.
It was
The whole
so
thing,
dumb.
You gotta pay attention.
So what happened was, she basically gets to this computer, right, and she opens a hatch while narrating out loud what she's doing.
Yeah.
Into
It felt weird.
into a handheld comm link, because we haven't figured out how to use headsets yet. Now I understand it's Star Wars and they've always used comm links, but still though, like she has like no like it's not like she's talking to like a lapel mic or something. It was like she's holding it right and she's like, "I've opened the secret hatch. You can come in now." And it even plays to the point where the dude 3 feet away like turns and
Like,
looks
here's
at
her,
her,
like, knows-
and then goes back to what he's doing. Like, I don't get paid enough to like pay attention to possible spies. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just a junior. Like, I don't care. It was like, what? What is going on? And it happened several times where she just continues to narrate out loud what's going on. Like, she's like, what are they keeping down here? And like, oh, they're coming up. There's droids everywhere. It's like, it was so obvious to anybody in the room that she did not belong. There was no believability to that whatsoever.
And thankfully, like at some point, an officer does come in and tell her you're not supposed to be here.
Yeah, and then she just goes full Sam Fisher and eliminates this guy with like less than a decibel of noise. Again, less than 10 feet away, we know, because we literally see the bank of like storage cells where
Yeah.
they like go and like talk behind for a second, and then we see like a quick like scuffling of motion, and this guy's like and then like drops to the ground.
Yeah, she just like chokes him out real quick.
Yeah, like she's clearly a master of martial arts then, because like I said, we're talking less than 10 feet away in a dead quiet room with, it's like a library, man. It was so quiet in there, could have heard a fly fart.
Yeah.
And all the other Imperial officers, they're just like just continuing to do whatever it is they're doing. It's like, oh, this guy just got knocked out behind us.
Like,
oh, there's clearly a spy over here.
All you have to do is make that happen, like in the hallway,
or
like
as we were
past one set of
Right.
doors, like that. That's
just-
all you have to do.
don't show us the rest of the room. Like, edit it to where it looks like it was further away. That's what editing's for.
But it's very clearly just like, yeah, like you said, 10, 15 feet away behind like a rack of banks. You have like, the module set up here, like 10 feet back. You
Yeah.
have this, and she disables him like right here.
And then she just walks around the corner while still talking into the microphone. She's like, Obi-Wan, are you there? As she walks back to the console.
It's bad.
It was
It's
so bad. Oh, and it just gets so much worse. Oh my gosh, it gets so much worse. So basically then we see Obi-Wan again hiding from the droid. He finally makes it to the detention level, essentially, which we know is the detention level because there's big red circles.
There's
on
2
the door.
red marks, one on each door.
Big, because we as the audience are not smart enough to just take him at his word that in a secret Imperial facility with no markings of any kind anywhere, somehow they felt the need to announce to everyone, this is the torture room. We're going into the dangerous room now. Anyway, he goes through it, and then he does take out the 2 stormtroopers in a really cool way. And I did like that, how he clearly is becoming more proficient back to his old self. Mm-hmm. He takes them both out one after another, using the darkness and not just kind of
Yeah, because
bullheading his way
very
into the room.
reminiscent of, like, was it episode 4 or 5 of season 2 of Mando with Ahsoka?
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that, where we first seen Ahsoka Tano pop up in the Jedi episode.
Yes.
Where she just kind of sparks a lightsaber and, like, cuts a dude down, then turns him off and disappears into the darkness. Like, very much like that. It was cool.
It was really cool. And I did notice that they did there were actual scorch marks on the armor from the stormtroopers.
Yes.
So they paid enough attention in post-production to actually make it look as if the lightsaber was doing damage to the stormtroopers and not just simply like, you're dead now because children are watching. We can't show any sense of violence. No, it was actually, that was cool. And we did see a guy get cut in half in the previous episode, so
yes, we did.
That was clearly somebody is a fan of what lightsabers can do. That at least is consistent. And then we see probably what is the best portion of the episode, which is Obi-Wan holding off a bunch of stormtroopers coming at him from either sides of a tunnel.
Yeah, it's a secret droid, it's a number of stormtroopers on one side with an officer, and then another officer with a group of 5 more troopers and a dark trooper come from the other side.
And he holds all of them off.
What I assume was a dark trooper.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it was one of the...
At least some kind of early iteration of a dark trooper. It didn't look like a death trooper.
No, the armor looked like the what do they call them? The black armored... kind of like the Jedi killers in Fallen Order, the ones that have the slanted armor and the red markings in the Magna Guard.
I know. I don't remember what
it looked like one of those.
It
looked like, and one of them actually fights with just a blaster. He doesn't fight with like a force pike. He actually fights with just a blaster. He's actually one of the harder ones to kill because he just holds distance the entire time. You got to close. Anyway.
You just like
Obi-Wan,
bump him off the edge and he dies though.
Yeah, that's true. You can do that. You can cheese it. But Obi-Wan basically holds them all off, and he doesn't look like an idiot with a lightsaber at this point. He actually has some form and some grace.
Here and there. It was the best 90 seconds of the whole episode right there in the middle.
Right, and he does screw up. He deflects one into the window, which shatters, and he has to hold it from like caving in and wiping the whole room out.
Yep.
But he does escape. He collapses the windows furthest from him, which I was hoping he would do.
Yeah, because he's like holding the one window closed and collapses the rest down the hallway. So
it washes the stormtroopers out, and then he escapes. They close the doors off. And then it just gets so much worse from there. It was like they had it for a minute and a half.
And then, when did Tala come back into the picture?
At that sequence. She's at the end of the hallway, and she's like, Obi-Wan, and then she like hits the button as he runs out the other side of the room.
Oh, right. So before this, Tala and Reva have their little interaction.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. You're right.
Which, that was fine. It's just a whole, bunch of, Reva trying to figure out what the truth is, and Tala trying to play... Imperial officer that's secretly a spy working for the rebellion rather than like the rebellion like secretly being the officer. Like all that interplay worked well enough for me.
Yeah, there were 2 points of issue, but they're nothing to do with the dialogue. The 2 points are
just Tala trying to convince Reva that she's actually an Imperial officer, that she's been spying on the rebellion, and like when Obi-Wan showed up, like this was my big break to get in, I have all this information for you kind of thing. So like, okay, smart play. And they had a good moment of dialogue where then Reva basically goes, "You're a spy," and she doesn't do what every classic villain goes, which is like, "Oh, you must be legit because you appeared at the right moment." Like she's suspicious, and rightly so. And Reva says, "You're a spy," and Tala's like, "Yes, I'm a spy. I'm an Imperial spy that's, that's been infiltrating the rebellion, basically trying to find the path." She does try to play into it, so that part is written well.
Yeah, there's some good dialogue. The issue I have is that Reva at this point, before that, was about to administer like the ultimate death chair punishment to Leia in this like 30 by 50 foot giant room with a single chair in it.
Yeah.
Because apparently wasted space is also an intimidation factor.
Yeah, it's like there's a giant room like the size of Snoke's throne room like, in The Last
with
Jedi.
With a single chair.
With a single like torture device in it. It's like, no, that fits in like a broom closet, dude. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's like, did you guys forget that you have like the probe torture droids from A New Hope or like the torture rack from Empire Strikes Back? But no, we needed a whole friggin' room to intimidate this little girl with like a single... Anyway.
But then
so she's about ready to torture her, right? And then this officer walks in and goes, "I was told it couldn't wait." And Reva's like,
"Fine.
Okay, cool. I'll go talk to this other person while I'm about to torture the information I desperately need out of this one person."
To be fair, Leia's not going anywhere.
That's a fair point. So
It's like she can spare 10 minutes to talk to somebody.
Right.
Because if it can't wait, you
But
never
that
know
dialogue
what
was good,
higher
though.
up it could be coming from.
Right, and that dialogue was good, though, where they didn't just go through the same song and dance where it's like, oh, I know I shouldn't have been, like, bothered to come in, but, this I was told it couldn't wait. The officer leads with that. And she does it well. For a single line of dialogue, that actress was believable in that moment where
Good
she...
job.
Yeah, she did a good job. Where she basically came across as kind of like a tired, more satirical, where she's like, I was told it couldn't wait. Like, don't even bother blaming me. I'm just here to deliver a message. She did it well. It was a good job. But then hilarity ensues because the choreography...
Towards the end of Tala and Reva's conversation, the alarms start going off.
Because Obi-Wan gets spotted by a probe droid.
Right, he gets spotted by the probe droid. And that's when the alarms go off, and Reva immediately says, it's him. It's who?
The guy that she just spent the entire
You
previous
don't
30
know
minutes
he's
convincing Leia that was dead. And was told he was dead, I assume, or she was just lying her butt off.
Reva was 100% just lying.
Okay,
Like, she knew Obi-Wan was not dead. She was just lying to Leia to try to get her to give up information.
That makes more sense. But she just immediately assumes, she's like, it's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it seems weird. Like, it's something like, have suspicions, sure. But to automatically you just assume, like, it's Obi-Wan for sure because the alarm is going off. That didn't make a lot of sense.
Right, and if we're supposed to, like, have some sort of knowledge as the audience that Reva is suspecting that Obi-Wan is going to come and rescue Leia, then you need to tell us that somehow without telling us that. You need to give us a cue somewhere in the episode that Reva is looking for or expecting Obi-Wan to show up. Therefore, when she says the line, it's Obi-Wan, it makes sense and is believable. And it doesn't come out of left field and sound like, oh, what was it? Like, okay, page 55. Okay, that's where... Oh, it was in the script. Bad writing.
So then Tala gets, escorted away by a couple troopers, and Reva goes off to deal with the alarm going off to find Obi-Wan.
And then Tala goes full Rambo and
gets rid of 2 troopers in the most unconvincing fashion anyone has ever done in Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. And now it's a little bit believable because we know stormtroopers are just conscripts. They're just regular rank-and-file soldiers. They're not specially bred soldiers that are from an elite stock from Jango Fett, who was a killer by
these
profession.
are stormtroopers, not clone troopers.
They're regular dudes. But still, the way that these 2 guys go down to a woman who weighs they outweigh her by at least 35, 40 pounds.
I'm not saying that she couldn't have taken them out.
Not
just
in the way she
did it.
And not without, like, some sort of force equalizer, like a pocket pistol or pulling some sort of, like, advanced martial art.
This is one of those instances where editing could have been your friend to help cover up some stuff that clearly was not choreographed well at all. Because she literally, like, grabs... Well, first, she just pushes a dude in the helmet. Just pushes a dude
she's like face
in the
palms
helmet
into the wall
with her left hand, and then grabs the other guy, like, underneath the helmet to pull him down to, like, wrestle away his gun. Okay, cool. But the dude that she just kind of shoved, like,
just stays
is
there.
stunned, doing the typical Star Wars stunt thing, like, the stunt actor's just doing what he's supposed to do until the actor comes
Which
in
is
on
act
cue.
phased for the 3.5 seconds it takes for him to be the next target.
Exactly. So he's just sitting there, like, stumbled, like, what's going on? What am I doing? And then it comes to just in time to get shot.
Which is a bit insulting, honestly, because
I
am going to take contention with this because having done martial arts and having fought women, which, by the way, I have no problem doing that, I actually think that most people should take a martial art, especially if you are a smaller, lighter individual, man or woman. It's a great way to just keep yourself safe.
Sure.
She's outweighed by at least 30 pounds, and that armor adds an extra 20. Just in universe, it's heavy, and it's meant to just be protective armor. These 2 guys, or guy and a woman, or 2 women, I'm an equal opportunity hater. I think this scene was just shot terribly. There is no reason that either of them should have reacted the way that they did. She has they're looking right at her, and she just is like, oh, face palm, and then like, oh, and then this guy, I'm gonna kill him real quick, and then this guy, the other dude that just like spent the last like 3 seconds being phased and dazed, now just kind of throws himself forward, and she blows him away with the other guy's blaster.
Yeah.
It was so stupid and unbelievable, and it gets even better. So now after that, when she hooks up with Obi-Wan, he does the whole tunnel sequence, the 1 minute and 30 seconds that the show was actually competent.
Yep.
And then they move to the final sequence, which is the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen in a movie or television show that was trying to present a serious moment with tension. There was no tension. It was funny, and it wasn't supposed to be. And it was
Kenobi's
also...
disguise is lame.
His disguise was
That's what I wrote.
so lame. So she's like, here, put this on. And we think, okay, he's got like an officer's uniform. Never you mind that all of the officers are like clean shaven and are, their hair is usually short in military fashion.
It's just an officer's cloak.
For real, and a hat. And we saw this cloak for like literally 4 seconds when Reva, in the very beginning of the episode, was walking. We saw some random chick walking across with like this cool like duster on, which I'm not sure what their job is other than to look like, a cool bro in a duster. But Obi-Wan gets this duster and now has grown a 3 foot, 4 foot tall tumor.
Because it's just, he's like, just has Leia under the cloak. And it's so bad because it's so obvious. Like, someone who is actually a spy, Tala,
And they're not walking through abandoned hallways.
Former I can't think, Republic General Obi-Wan Kenobi.
With a beard.
This is the best thing they came up with, was Leia like hiding under his cloak that does not fit right, that you can clearly tell.
Waylay a stormtrooper and like grab his helmet, which would cover your face and would be believable.
Yeah.
Or like put, Leia in.
There could have been so many just like clever ways you could have done this very quickly as well, given they just wiped out like 20 dudes and droids.
Yeah. Just grab some freaking armor and put her in like handcuffs and then like have her march her across the deck, with a stormtrooper and an officer. That's more believable than what we saw, which was a homeless dude in an Imperial officer's hat and a friggin' duster with, he just got Leia like underneath the side, and they look shifty as hell.
Yeah.
They're like looking around, like waiting for somebody to spot them. And then Leia like peeks out from the side a few times. And there's at least 100 people in this shot, walking back and forth within 2 or 3 feet of them. And everyone's like, nope, nothing to see here. So clearly Obi-Wan was either pulling a massive Jedi mind trick, which he can't even like pull a comlink to himself in the beginning of the episode. I laughed because it was so stupid. I don't know who they wrote this for. Even as a kid, I would have thought that was dumb. Like, it would have been more believable if they would have pulled, like, the old school, like, Little Rascals thing where the one kid gets on the other kid's shoulders and then they put the big jacket on and then the hat. That would have been more believable than what we saw.
Yeah. And I don't think it's fair, like, saying, like, stuff like this is, like, written for kids or something like that. No, it's just bad writing.
No, I don't even think a kid would have been...
It's just bad
writing. Would have even thought, like, oh, that's really clever. Nobody would catch that. And then they do exactly what you're not supposed to do.
As soon as Reva...
Always go with it. As soon as she shows up and she's like, traitor!
They're like, turn around and look at her. They both turn around and look at her. It's like, no, dude, just... Again, spy, general. Act like you belong. Just do the thing and pretend you're supposed to be there.
Yeah, you're in a giant room.
And most people will not notice.
Right, most people are going to like try and look like, what?
Disguises that they didn't even try to hide that they had Leia or anything, or that Obi-Wan is in fact Obi-Wan. They just turn around and look at Reva the first time she says anything. Oh, and then at that point,
apparently the Jedi illusion is broken because all the stormtroopers are like, oh, what the heck?
Everybody is now alerted to what is going on.
It's so bad.
It's so
and then, because plot armor and they needed a reason to bring in the aforementioned T-47s, the non-combative, non-soldier, non-trained fighters who are now crack shots zip in at Mach 1 on these T-47s with pinpoint accuracy, blowing away entire hordes of stormtroopers.
On either side of Tala, Leia, and Obi-Wan, who are like right here, and the strafing run comes in just like right here perfectly.
And those pew-pews were so on point. Stormtroopers are flying all over the place, and there's no shrapnel, no blood or anything because it's Star Wars. And Reva's like, I'm going to block these giant, huge blaster bolts that are coming from an actual ship, which I could talk about that. I really don't. It doesn't even bear mentioning because it's so freaking stupid. There is literally not a single canon example or reason other than to support the fact that somebody with a lightsaber could block the amount of kinetic energy coming from a ship.
Done? She should have just thrown her lightsaber at the
ship. Yeah, she should have done that. Or dived away. And we know that it's not possible because when Obi-Wan tried to block the blaster bolts from Jango Fett's Slave 1, he got yeeted. Like, he tried to block it, and he totally got just yeeted.
When they were on, what, Geonosis?
Camino,
sorry.
Yeah, he got... Yeah. And the ship was, like, a good 40, 50 feet away, and they weren't turbo lasers or anything. They were just laser cannons, and Obi-Wan got yeeted, and he was looking to block it. Couldn't do it. But Reva's just amazing, apparently. And it gets even worse than that, because as the ships, like, fly in, they, like, shrink in a weird way, where they get really small to, like, give you a perspective that, like, this hangar's a lot bigger than it really looks. Which, I don't know, it was just a brief moment.
Because we saw the hangar in the previous episode, and it can fit a good number of TIE fighters in there, in excess of 100 people in the bay.
Remember that. TIE fighters. Remember that. So, these ships just magically get smaller for a forced perspective shot, which only lasts for a few seconds. And then the ships, like, turn around and back out, and Obi-Wan and Tala and Leia have escaped in the melee, because that's believable.
Yep, hectic, chaos is going on. One of the ships is still firing, kind of hovering
there.
They
run away.
One lands, and they get on the ship so they can fly off.
Right.
Cool.
This is the part that just... This is so stupid, beyond belief. So, the one dude who's in the other T-47 gets within, like, what looks like 10 feet away from Reva. And she's just like, just blocking these laser shots from... laser cannon bolts from this T-47. He's just, like, hovering there, and he's just, like, sitting there. She could easily, we know, she could just pull an acrobatic, jump onto it, cut open the cockpit, do something super cool.
Which would have worked.
She just stands there, and she's like, and it just... and then he just, like, slowly pans and then flies away. And then as they're flying away, the third brother runs up and he's like, "What are you doing? Get them!" And then so they pick up a box and throw it at them with the Force. And apparently these ships are so poorly designed, or that box was full of thermal detonators, because that ship explodes and then just goes, into the water. And that was, and I was just like, "Yep, this show sucks." Like, it was, I couldn't believe it. I didn't even know what to say at that point. I was just awestruck at the amount of lazy writing that was in this episode. It was just bad. It was just really bad. And then they get to the end of the episode, and there is a nice, touching moment where Ewan McGregor and I can't remember her name.
I don't remember it either, but
Leia and Obi-Wan have a bonding moment, and she, like, holds his hand, and clearly he is having still massive issues of some kind.
Yeah.
And she is obviously come through a really traumatic moment, even though there wasn't a second of tension to be found in this entire episode. For anybody. Literally no one. Except
for Tala and Reva.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Because
there was a moment where I thought that Tala might buy it.
Those are the only two new characters that we're just not sure where they're actually going to end up.
Correct.
So, involving them did have some tension.
But then we get to see Darth Vader.
Between, like, Tala and Reva together, and then with Reva and Vader. That scene had some decent tension to it.
I was like, please,
I know.
Please,
I
just
think
crush her
everybody
and
was
yeet
out
her
there
into
was
the
like,
wall.
yes, like, kill her, because you're Vader, and you said you would kill her if she failed you.
He even says it. He's like,
you.
you're warned what the price of failure is. And this is a dude that literally snapped a guy's neck, or slowly crushed his windpipe from a battleship away.
Yeah.
Simply because he got too close to a planet when they were about to they were about to ensue a full blockade.
Yeah.
Just because he got too close. That's it. Died. Full admiral. Just dropped him on the spot. And then another guy he dropped. I mean, the amount of bodies that Vader has dropped for lesser reasons. The only reason that Reva survived is plot armor. And that's it.
Yeah.
That is it.
Like, the reason that they give is that, she said that she's put a tracker on Obi-Wan. So now she can track them and discover, where they're going and find the path that they've been looking for, kind of thing. Which there's no reason to assume that's where they're going.
And there's also no reason to assume...
I guess you can fairly assume that's where they're going, because he is a Jedi and they're going to be
and they're with the path, so I guess fine, that's there, but lazy writing again, because you need to give us some sort of cue as the audience that that's what's going on.
That's the assumption that, this was Reva's plan all along, because she actually hid the tracker in Lola, so she would have had to have known that Obi-Wan was going to come to rescue Leia, which, if that was the case, then there was no need to
then Vader
torture her and try and get any information out of her. Information that, let's be clear, Leia doesn't know.
Right, it's true.
Leia knows nothing that Reva is trying to... None of the information that Reva is trying to get out of her. She actually doesn't know.
Right.
Like, she just found out that there's, like, a path while she was on this random planet with some dude that rescued her. She does not know what's going on.
Right.
So, it doesn't make sense for Reva to be interrogating her, trying to get this information, because
if
she
she's
doesn't
just
actually
going
have
to
it.
try to, like, track them later after the
Especially if
fact.
she's trying to track them later, because, okay, there's no reason for you to interrogate Leia, because she's just bait. You capture her, you stick her in a cell, you wait for Obi-Wan to come and rescue her because you want to put a tracker on the droid to let them get away. That makes sense, but everything inside of that doesn't, because there's no reason to interrogate her, and there's no reason to not tell anybody else of this plan. There's no reason to get yourself almost killed by Vader just to say that you let them get away.
And I'm going to cut you off at the pass. I hear what you're already saying in your mind, but they let them get away. No, they didn't. They were clearly frustrated and upset that they got away. That is not the reason
Reva
why.
says she let them get away, and then there's all this like hidden backstory stuff as to like placing the tracker, like, oh, she actually did that stuff, but none of it makes sense for her to have actually done any of that.
No, if her motivations were that, then everything about how they pursued them made literally no sense. None. Because they made it very obvious that they were trying to capture them, not kill them. And when Reva gets to the hangar bay, she's out for blood. She's looking to kill this both Obi-Wan and Tala, who I don't understand why she didn't just kill her on the spot. But in any case, her motivations don't make sense. She's just like, she just changes motivation like halfway through the episode, where she's like, oh, I'm gonna pull a fast one, and I'm gonna just, sneak a tracker on, in her little pocket droid, and
just
then we're gonna
in case
follow
she
them.
happens to escape. Doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
I don't buy it.
No, I don't buy it for a second either. And
Vader
it's
should have
made
killed her right
the
there.
only reason that it's there is to make her seem cleverer than she actually is. And it makes no sense why Vader didn't just go, you're done, right there on the spot. And then third brother gets promoted, or Reva gets attacked and then like somehow survives the attack. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
They make every mistake possible. Literally. Every single one.
Yeah.
And then, Wade. Poor Wade. The guy who died in the T-47 that was about his...
Luke didn't feel bad. I felt bad for
I felt
Wade.
nothing.
I felt bad for Wade.
I felt nothing. Literally nothing.
Wade was nice. We saw Wade.
You know why those
At the beginning of the episode.
Yeah, and I'll tell you exactly why those T-47s were there in the first place, because member berries. Remember the snow speeders? You're supposed to like that. You like old Star Wars, right? These are cool. You're dumb. You're really, really dumb. And those T-47s... they should have been vaped the second that they got within a 100-mile radius of that base. Because remember what I said earlier? TIE fighters. Apparently everybody got a coffee break at the same time, because there is not a single friggin' TIE fighter to be seen in this entire base.
Yeah.
They're all just gone.
Yeah.
Period.
And in the previous episode, the first time we see this, there's like 4 fighters that are circling like the actual building itself, and there's more in the hangar. Like, we know they're there.
That's just standard military procedure.
Exactly.
You have some sort of patrol. They're just absent, gone.
Like they do make the this doesn't refute what you said, but they do make a point to say earlier on in the beginning of the episode that the fortress doesn't have shields or anything, because like, well, who's gonna be stupid enough to attack? Like,
right.
This is not a place that you want to break into, kind of thing in general.
But we still saw the TIE fighters,
from the shield perspective, it makes sense that they would be able to have the ability to get close.
But how would you defend it if it were attacked, though?
But the TIE fighters were there, but then they're magically not.
They're
so
just
like,
magically
that would
gone.
be an issue. And you're telling me that they don't have any, I don't know what Star Wars calls radar.
Apparently they have no way of detecting them. Clearly,
that would have been a thing too. It's like, no, you would have been seen long before.
Oh, they can detect. We know from Empire Strikes Back, they specifically say that the way that they've basically found out that the base is there and that the ships are there is from picking up communications. So they've like monitored the, I would assume, our radio transmissions transferred between, because this is old tech in a modern universe.
Yeah.
Remember that this isn't like Star Trek, it's Star Wars. So there's some old new tech that's kind of been blended together. Mm-hmm. So there is no believable example, excuse, or reason that you can give me other than she let them get away, which doesn't make sense because her motivations were never, ever shown in this entire episode to be geared towards luring them in to rescue her so that then she could put a tracker on Leia to then lead them to the rest of the path. Like, if that was your point, if that was what you were trying to get us to see in this episode, you did a piss poor example of how to convince an audience of what the character's motivations are. It didn't work. It just did not work.
Yeah. No, didn't.
This episode sucks. And we've got 2 left. I don't know how you fix this.
Yeah, I don't know. After episode 3, I had some hope of like, okay, you know what? You can start, turning things around a little bit, setting up for the final 2 episodes.
Give Obi-Wan his mojo back.
Episodes in 3 and 4 are kind of your second act, where not a whole lot's going to happen. It could be a lot of like plot development, kind of setting stuff up for the last 2 episodes. We knew that was going to happen, but just the way it was done, like if the writing continues to be this bad, like at least Obi-Wan got to kick a little bit of butt in this episode. That's a bright spot.
For a minute and 30 seconds, we got to see an Obi-Wan from a bygone era. And do not believe for a second that you are a racist or any kind of phobe or anything if you didn't like this. You are allowed to not like it for very valid reasons that we have given you, and none of them have anything to do with the fact that the women in the episode take center stage or that Reva is black. You are the racist if you are the one who see color. If you are the one that the first thing you see when a person meets you is what color the skin of that person is, you might be the racist. Yeah. That's what I have to say about that.
It's fair. Yeah. Like, I didn't have any issues with it beyond what we talked about, which was just a lot of bad writing. That's the biggest issue with this. So, yeah, I mean, we kind of went through the whole episode. It's unfortunate that hopefully they can recover a little bit and do something interesting in the last 2 episodes. But it's been a fairly steady decline from the first 4 episodes so far.
Yeah.
Like 1 little step up in 2, came down a little bit in 3, and then 4 goes down even further. So we're going to watch them, obviously, because we're going to talk about them.
I would have loved to have seen the previous revision of the story before Kathleen Kennedy said, "Oh, it's too dark."
Is that what happened?
They just revised it because apparently it wasn't like hopeful enough. Which by that definition, it didn't suck enough, I guess is what was really being said.
Okay.
I just feel bad. I really feel bad for all of the people who got cheated out of a great Star Wars series where we could have seen Ewan McGregor come back as arguably one of the most well-beloved Star Wars characters of all time. Obi-Wan Kenobi has always been one of my favorites.
I feel bad for everybody on the show, too.
Yeah, I do. I really do. Especially like Moses Ingram.
All the actors, everybody, and everybody that worked on the show that, like, is doing what they were told to do. Yeah. Like, none of this is the actor's fault. No. Don't give any grief to Moses Ingram over, like, the character.
It's like
she's doing a good job.
You're blaming a contractor for building a house that
and we've said that in previous episodes, too, where it's like she's doing what I'm assuming she was told to do very well, because she's a very unlikable character.
Yeah.
But that's not the actress's fault. Don't give any grief to her.
No, not at all. And if you are, you're a terrible...
Shame on you.
Shame on you. Seriously. If you're one of the people that has said some of the racist stuff, which has happened actually to Moses Ingram, she did get some stuff, but it was like a handful. It really wasn't that big of a deal, and the majority of Star Wars fans are not racists. I love Rosario Dawson. I loved seeing Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian. I loved seeing Samuel L. Jackson as friggin' Mace Windu.
But in any situation,
ridiculous.
You can not like the story, characters, show. Cool. You can not like whatever you want, but don't attack the actors. That's not on them.
Unless
they're doing their job.
Unless, of course, like Moses Ingram she does get a fair amount of backlash for coming at the fans and accusing them of disliking Reva simply because of the fact that she is black, and she has said that.
Right, and that's not fair, but.
The majority of us just don't like your character because she's poorly written.
Right, and
sorry,
some people have, and said those things about her just because I legitimately are being racist. Like, don't do that.
Yeah, all 12 of them.
Don't do that. But still, don't do that.
Good Lord, people, seriously. But in all seriousness, no, I don't know how they're gonna fix this. I really don't. I feel cheated because I really wanted to see a good Obi-Wan Kenobi series. I want to see a good Boba Fett series. Got cheated out of that too.
I will reserve. Whatever the saying is.
I'm calling it now. Honestly, we're
reserve
over halfway
judgment. I'll reserve judgment until I see the last 2 episodes. Because I think, again, the previous 3 episodes were better than this, which means the next 2 can be better than this. Like, it's not... I'm hopeful that they might do something interesting, like I said.
Right.
Going forward with the last 2 episodes, they can, like, stick the landing and do something at least interesting and that makes sense. That's the biggest thing. I don't care if I like it, as long as it makes sense.
You have
at
to
least
pull
made
off
a
a small
competent
miracle,
show.
though. You'd literally have to pull off a miracle to sell this to the fans, though.
But-
if you're a normie and you're watching this, you're probably bored out of your mind because even people who don't like Star Wars or don't care about Star Wars think that this is a crap show, because it is. And if you are a Star Wars fan, I am sorry, because I'm right there with you. I have slogged through the past 10 years of crappy Star Wars movies and TV shows, with the exception of The Mandalorian. Right there with you. I've been right there with you. I'm just waiting for somebody to finally wake up, fire Kathleen Kennedy, get rid of these people who clearly can't write, and just get back to what makes money. That's it. That's your one job, make money. And it's not hard. It really isn't. I'm calling it. This show's toast, man. This was the midpoint. This is over the midpoint.
Yeah,
we got 2 episodes left.
2/3 of the way
and
through.
you're 4 in, and you're 4 for 4 on just, it sucks now. There's no recovering unless the only thing you can do, and like Jeremiah pointed out, the only thing you can do at this point is to sell a cohesive narrative, even if it's a lame duck narrative. You
Just
can
have
still
it make sense.
You can still have it make sense.
Just be competent on the actual making of the show part.
Yeah. As a college professor of mine said, if your paper's terrible, at least make the paper, make
Cohesive?
sense. Yeah, at least have page 1 and page 20 have a narrative that runs through that sucks. At least you can say that it was a holistic piece of garbage instead of a disjunct, dysfunctional piece of garbage.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
That's
But
it.
yeah.
That's all I got to say about this.
Yeah, I'm through talking about it. I think we've harped on it long enough because we have to do it again next week.
Yep, we've whipped that dead horse, and we got to whip 2 more in the following couple of weeks. So,
Yeah, indeed.
to all of you that are potentially watching this, thank you so much for sticking around and watching it through to the end of the video. We know that we just got absolutely savage towards the end. If you disagree with anything we had to say, post it in the comments below. If you didn't like the video, we thank you for sticking around anyway.
Yeah.
Just hit the like button if you did like it and share it with your friends and family. That's how we're going to get out and how we're going to get a little bit more exposure. I'm sure that YouTube is not real friendly with the kind of content that we're making. It's just against the narrative right now, and we're just not going to see good numbers unless we get shared around with your friends and family. So hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment below, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
And if you are listening on Spotify, if you could follow us and leave us a rating there, that will help us out a lot as well.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Later.